Hello guys, this is your friend Multiverse Shinobi 2.0 and we are back with a new fanfic. What if the Yellow Flash in One Piece? Part 1. Chapter 1. The Yellow Flash and the Red Hot Habanero. Timeline. 26 years ago, the Great Pirate Era, the Grand Line. Marineford, Fleet Admiral's office. WHO ate them. The roar was not merely a sound, it was a physical force. It blasted through the reinforced oak doors of the Fleet Admiral's office, shook the very foundations of the massive marine fortress, and caused a flock of seagulls cruising at 3,000 feet to suffer simultaneous heart attacks. Inside the office, the scene was one of absolute devastation. Monkey D. Garp, the hero of the Marines, was currently engaged in a battle to the death with the furniture. He had upended a heavy mahogany sofa with one hand and was currently peering into the depths of a priceless antique vase, his face redder than a magma admiral's coat. My limited edition, Justice Glazed, Donuts. Garp screamed, veins throbbing on his forehead. There were 24. 2 I stood in line for 40 minutes. Sengoku. Did you eat them? Admiral Sengoku, the future fleet admiral, sat at his desk with the calmness of a statue. He was meticulously feeding a wanted poster to his pet goat. He didn't even blink as a wooden chair flew past his head and shattered against the wall. I did not eat your sugar-laden rings of death, Garp, Sengoku said, his voice level. I prefer rice crackers. They have significantly less cholesterol-induced madness. Then WHO, Garp bellowed, grabbing the goat by the horns and staring into its rectangular pupils. Was it you? Talk, you demon. Bah, the goat replied, chewing on the face of a 50 million berry pirate. Sengoku adjusted his glasses. I did, however, see Vice Admiral Minato leaving your office about an hour ago. He looked remarkably happy. There was a certain bounce in his step. And his cheeks were bulging. Garp froze. The realization hit him like a galaxy impact. Minato. Garp sprinted to the window, shaking his fist at the vast ocean. That ungrateful brat. I taught him the fist of love, not the fist of theft. I'll sink his ship myself. Sengoku sighed, looking down at the personnel file on his desk. The photo showed a young man with bright blue eyes and spiky blonde hair, smiling with a warmth that disarmed enemies and allies alike. Name: Monkey D. Minato. Rank: Vice Admiral G5 Base Commander. Epithet: The Yellow Flash. Status: Active. He possesses Garp's raw strength, but lacks his recklessness, Sengoku murmured. If he truly awakens that devil fruit, he has the potential to stand on the same mountain as Roger and Whitebeard. Let us hope he remains on our side of justice. The Grand Line, aboard the G5 warship, the Thunder God. The sea was deceptively calm, but the marine warship cutting through it was vibrating with a specific kind of tension. On the main deck, Vice Admiral Monkey D. Minato, age 19, sat on a munitions crate. He looked like the ideal marine, until you noticed his cheeks were stuffed like a chipmunk's and his face was covered in a sticky white sugar glaze. MMPH, Minato made a happy noise, swallowing a massive bite. Delicious. Dad really knows how to pick the good snacks. Vice Admiral. A young rear admiral with silver hair and a mask covering his face walked over, holding an orange book. Kakashi-kun, Minato smiled, offering a half-eaten glazed ring. Want one? It tastes like victory. No, sir, Kakashi, age 14, deadpanned. Stealing from Hero Garp is not absolute justice. It is petty larceny. Look out. A voice screamed from the crow's nest. Obito Uchiha, age 14, wearing orange-tinted goggles, pointed frantically at the horizon. Pirate ship. Dead ahead. Wait. Is that a spiral symbol? It's the Uzumaki pirates. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Minato's playful air evaporated. He wiped the sugar from his mouth and stood up. His hand rested naturally on the hilt of his supreme-grade sword, Setsuna. Uzumaki. Minato whispered, his eyes sharpening. The Princess of Whirlpools. This won't be a simple arrest. The pirate ship, Maelstrom. Drink up, you bastards. Standing on a rum barrel was Captain Kushina Uzumaki. At 20 years old, she radiated power. Her long, crimson hair whipped in the wind like 9 separate tails of fire. Captain. Her vice-captain, Fuso, rushed over, face pale. We have to move. Look at the gold stripe on that hull, the Thunderbolt symbol. That's the yellow flash. It's Monkey D. Minato. The music on the deck stopped. The monster rookie. A pirate whispered, knees knocking. They say he wiped out 50 ships in 3 minutes. He's the son of the devil Garp. Kushina lowered her tankard. She looked across the water at the blond man standing calmly on the approaching ship. She grinned. A feral, competitive baring of teeth. Son of Garp, huh? Kushina crushed the wooden tankard in her hand. So he's a monkey. Then let's see if he can dance. Prepare for battle. She drew her sword, Benihime, the blood-red blade pulsing with a heartbeat of its own. A blast of Conqueror's haki exploded from her body, turning the sky red. The encounter. The two ships pulled alongside each other. Oi, Flash Boy, Kushina shouted across the water. If you value your life, turn that tub around. I'm in a bad mood. On the marine ship, Minato stepped to the railing. Kakashi, Obito, stay here. Do not engage the captain. Sir. Kakashi blinked. You're going alone. Minato didn't answer. He just vanished. ZW oop. 1 second he was on the warship. The next nanosecond, he was standing on the railing of the maelstrom, right in front of Kushina. Good afternoon, Minato said politely. I am Vice Admiral Minato. I'm afraid I have to ask you to surrender. And also, that root beer smells excellent. Is it a local brew? Kushina's brain short-circuited. Surrender. Do you think I'm some East Blue rookie? I am the red-hot habanero. Clang. She swung Benihime with mountain-cleaving force. Minato drew Setsuna instantly. Sparks flew like fireworks as the blades collided, the shockwave shattering windows for miles. Heavy, Minato noted, his feet sliding back an inch. For a princess, you swing like a giant. And for a marine, Kushina grinned savagely, you talk too much. 5 massive adamantine chains erupted from Kushina's back, coated in black armament haki, lashing out like vipers. Minato danced through them, a yellow streak of light. They clashed again and again, haki against haki, red lightning splitting the sky. After 10 minutes of chaos, Minato flashed back to the railing. He looked at her. Really looked at her. He saw the way the setting sun hit her chaotic red hair. Wait, Minato said. Kushina paused, her chains hovering. What? Begging for mercy. No, Minato said, his voice dropping the playful tone. Your hair, it's incredible. I've never seen hair that color. It's like the sun setting over the ocean. It's beautiful. The battlefield went silent. Kushina froze. All her life, people had mocked it. They called it tomato. Nobody had ever called it beautiful. Her face turned a shade of red that put her hair to shame. Steam literally erupted from her ears. Beautiful. Kushina stammered. And then, the embarrassment turned to panic. Don't mock me. She wound up her fist, coated it in pure, flustered, high-grade haki, and punched Minato square in the face. Boom. Minato was launched off the ship like a human cannonball. He skipped across the water 3 times, skip, before crashing into the steel hull of his own warship, leaving a perfect Minato-shaped dent. Minato pulled himself out of the metal, a massive comical lump on his cheek and a wide, goofy grin on his face. Sir, are you okay? Kakashi yelled. No, Minato laughed, wiping blood from his lip. She used a fist of love. Just like Dad. Setsuna, we found a strong one. And a cute one. On the maelstrom, Kushina touched a lock of her hair, hiding her flushed face from her crew. He's a weirdo, she murmured. But next time, I'll punch him even harder. Chapter 3. The Sun and the Volcano, the Battle of Eddy Island. Timeline. The Great Purge, the New World. The sky over Eddy Island had turned into a nightmare of ash and fire. The screams of the retreating Uzumaki clan were drowned out by the thunderous roar of the sea. Admiral Akainu stood atop a pillar of solidifying magma, looking down at Minato with eyes that promised nothing but erasure. To think that Garp's legacy would end in such disgrace, Akainu rumbled, his voice like grinding tectonic plates. You have traded your rank for a pirate's life. You are no longer a marine, Minato. You are a cancer to the world's order. Minato stood on the boiling surface of the lagoon. His right hand was severely burned from blocking Akainu's earlier attack, the skin blackened and smoking. Yet, he didn't tremble. He reached into his pouch and pulled out 3 special Hiraishin kunai, holding them between his fingers. If the world's order requires the slaughter of women and children, Sakazuki-san, Minato said, his voice dropping into a chilling, calm tone, then that order is already broken. I am not a traitor. First, I'm a marine who actually remembers the meaning of the word justice. Great eruption. Akainu didn't waste another breath. He launched a fist of magma so massive it eclipsed the sun. The sheer heat caused the water around Minato to evaporate instantly, creating a blinding mist. Oop. Minato vanished. In a heartbeat, he reappeared high above the magma fist, his blonde hair glowing like a halo against the dark ash. He threw his kunai in a wide arc, scattering them across the marine fleet anchored in the distance. You can't dodge forever, boy. Akainu roared. He transformed his lower body into a volcanic jet, launching himself into the air after Minato. Hound of the Hunt. A massive canine made of molten rock lunged at Minato in midair. Minato spun, his white coat fluttering. In mid-flight, he grabbed a kunai that was falling toward the sea and teleported to it. Then, using the momentum, he kicked off the air itself with a burst of Conqueror's Haki. Rasengan. Minato slammed the swirling sphere of energy directly into the magma dog's head. The collision sent a shockwave that cleared the fog for miles. But Akainu was already there, his fist reforming. Logia types are troublesome, Minato muttered, his eyes darting. He could feel his stamina draining. He had to keep Akainu's attention away from the grotto where Kushina was escaping. The grotto, Kushina's perspective. Kushina was shoving children and elderly clan members into the small, reinforced escape submersibles. Her heart was in her throat. Every time she heard a blast from the surface, she felt a pang of guilt that felt like a blade in her chest. Captain, we have to go. The island is collapsing, Fuso yelled, pointing at the cracks appearing in the cavern walls. He's still up there, Kushina screamed, her hair whipping violently. He's fighting an admiral for us. I can't leave him. She looked at the special kunai Minato had given her. It felt warm in her hand. Suddenly, a massive tremor shook the cave. A chunk of the ceiling fell, heading straight for a group of orphans. No. Kushina's adamantine chains shot out, pulverizing the rock into dust before it could hit them. She turned to Fuso, her eyes wet but fierce. Take them and go. If I don't go back up there, I'll never be able to look at my own reflection again. I am an Uzumaki. We don't let our friends die alone. Kushina. Wait. But she was already gone, swimming back toward the surface with the speed of a vengeful sea goddess. Back at the surface, the battle had escalated to a level of destruction rarely seen outside of a clash between emperors. The lagoon was gone, replaced by a field of cooling, jagged volcanic rock. Minato was panting, blood trickling down his forehead. His marine coat was shredded. Against an opponent like Akainu, one mistake meant losing a limb. Is that all? Yellow Flash. Akainu sneered, his chest glowing like a furnace. You have the speed of light, but your justice is as fragile as glass. Look at your island. It is a tomb. It's not over, Minato whispered. He sheathed his sword, Setsuna. He closed his eyes, centering his haki. Akainu sensed the change in the air. What are you doing? I've spent my life being fast, Minato said, opening his eyes. They weren't blue anymore, they were a piercing, electric gold. But my father taught me that speed is useless without the weight of the world behind it. This is for the people of Eddy Island. Minato threw a single kunai, not at Akainu, but straight up into the dark clouds. Hiraishin. Jikuakan Shippu Senku Renoden 0 Shiki. In a flash that blinded every marine on the horizon, Minato became a blur of gold. He wasn't just teleporting, he was moving so fast he was creating localized time warps. He struck Akainu from 12 different directions at once. Clang, boom, crunch. Each strike was infused with advanced Conqueror's haki. Even Akainu's Logia body couldn't fully dissipate the damage. The Admiral was forced back, his magma splattering across the rocks. You brat! Akainu roared, his patience snapping. He channeled every ounce of his devil fruit power into the ground. Meteor volcano. End of the world. The entire island began to erupt at once. It was a suicide move. Akainu was willing to sink himself just to kill Minato and the remaining Uzumakis. Suddenly, a red blur burst from the water. Get away from him, you overgrown candle. Kushina Uzumaki vaulted into the air, her chains glowing with a blinding white light. She wrapped them around Akainu's glowing arms, the sealing haki of the Uzumaki clan forcing his magma to revert back into human flesh. Kushina, Minato gasped, appearing beside her. I told you to leave. And I told you I'm in a bad mood. She yelled, her face inches from his. Now, give him everything you've got while I hold him down. Databane. Minato smiled. A real, wide, D-clan grin. He gathered all his remaining energy into his palm. The Rasengan grew, turning from blue to a brilliant, golden white. Flash Step Rasengan. Supernova. With Kushina's chains holding the Admiral in place, Minato slammed the attack into Akainu's chest. The explosion was so powerful it pushed the clouds away, revealing the stars above for a brief second before the sea itself roared in protest. The aftermath. When the smoke cleared, Akainu was buried deep in the volcanic rock, unconscious and bleeding. He wasn't dead. It takes more than that to kill an admiral. Lekina Vaha Harakukuda. Minato and Kushina stood on a floating piece of wreckage, both exhausted, both covered in wounds. The marine fleet was in disarray, fearing to approach the two monsters on the island. We did it, Minato whispered, his legs finally giving out. Kushina caught him, pulling his head onto her shoulder. She looked at the sunset, her red hair tangling with his blonde spikes. Yeah, she said, her voice soft. But now, you're a wanted man, Minato. You can't go back to Marineford. Minato looked at the justice kanji on his torn coat. He slowly ripped the coat off and let it fall into the sea. I think I prefer being a weirdo with you anyway. Kushina laughed, her first real laugh since the battle began. Well then, Mr. Vice Admiral, welcome to the Maelstrom Pirates. Chapter 4. The most wanted couple in the world. Timeline. 24 years ago, the Grand Line, the age of the Great Pirate Era. The news hit the world like a tsunami. The economic journal bird carriers worked overtime, dropping extra editions on every island from the calmest corners of the East Blue to the jagged peaks of the Red Line. The headline was so scandalous, so unbelievable, that even the Pirate King, Gall D. Roger, reportedly laughed until he choked on his sake. The treason of the Flash. Vice Admiral Minato deserts the Navy. The hero's son joins the red-hot Habanero. Below the headline was a blurry photograph taken by a fleeing Marine scout. It showed Minato and Kushina standing back to back amidst the ruins of Eddy Island, bloodied but defiant, their haki-infused weapons glowing against the backdrop of a sinking Marine warship. Minato's bounty was set instantly. 1.2 billion berries. Dead or alive. Kushina's bounty rose to 2 billion berries. The most dangerous woman in the world. The world government had officially declared them the Calamity Couple. The Grand Line, aboard the Maelstrom. Life as a pirate was significantly noisier than life as a Marine. Minato, you're peeling the potatoes too fast. You're turning them into dust. Databane. Kushina's voice echoed through the galley of the Maelstrom. Minato, the man who had once commanded an entire Marine division, was currently wearing a pink apron over his trousers, his hands moving so fast they were a literal blur. I'm sorry, Kushina. Minato laughed, his blonde hair dusted with potato starch. I was just trying to be efficient. I thought if I used the Hiraishin on the peeler, I could finish the whole sack in 3 seconds. We want to eat mashed potatoes, not potato vapor. Kushina stomped her foot, but then her expression softened. She walked over and rested her head against his back. You're still not used to the slow life, are you? Minato stopped. He looked out the galley window at the endless blue horizon. It's not the speed, Kushina. It's the peace. For the first time in my life, I don't have Sengoku's orders in my ear or the weight of absolute justice on my shoulders. I just have you. He turned around and kissed her forehead. But, he added, his blue eyes turning serious, we aren't safe. I can feel the eyes on us. The cipher pole is hunting us, and my father, he hasn't moved yet. That's what scares me the most. When Garp is quiet, a storm is coming. Marineford, the execution platform. Fleet Admiral Kong stood looking over the bay, his arms crossed. Behind him, Garp was sitting on the floor, eating a massive bag of rice crackers. The sound of his chewing, crunch, 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 was the only thing filling the heavy silence. Garp, Kong said, his voice strained. Your son has committed the ultimate sin. He didn't just desert, he protected an Uzumaki and assaulted an admiral. Akainu is still in the infirmary, and he's demanding your son's head. Garp stopped chewing. He looked at a small, crumpled photo in his pocket, a picture of a young Minato at his graduation, looking proud in his marine cap. That brat always had a soft heart, Garp muttered, his voice unusually low. I told him the fist of love would keep him on the right path. I guess I didn't hit him hard enough. The Gorosei want a public execution, Kong continued. If we don't catch them soon, they will send the CP0 to wipe out the entire Uzumaki bloodline to lure them out. Garp stood up, his presence suddenly making the air feel heavy. No, tell the old fossils to stay out of it. This is a monkey family matter. I'll find him, and when I do, I'll make sure he can't walk for a month. Garp walked away, but Kong noticed that for the first time in 30 years, the hero of the Marines looked old. 6 months later, the hidden island of White Rock. Deep in the calm belt, where the Sea Kings were the only neighbors and the wind never blew, sat a small, unnamed island covered in white flowers. Minato had used his tactical mind to hide them where no log pose could point. He had spent months setting up a flash barrier, thousands of marked kunai hidden in the trees, creating a sensory network that would alert him if even a bird landed on the shore. Inside a small wooden cabin, the atmosphere was thick with tension of a different kind. Breathe, Kushina. Just breathe. Minato was frantic. He was sweating more now than he had during his fight with Akainu. I am breathing, you yellow idiot. Kushina screamed, grabbing his hand with a grip that literally cracked his knuckles. If you tell me to breathe one more time, I will throw you into the ocean. Databane. Fuso, acting as the midwife, was trying to keep her cool. Minato-sama, please go outside. You're making her haki flare up, and it's shaking the foundation of the house. Minato stumbled outside, pacing the porch. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet, the exact color of the hair of the woman he loved. Suddenly, the world went silent. The birds stopped chirping. The sea kings beneath the waves went still. A tiny, high-pitched wail broke the silence. Minato's heart stopped. He didn't teleport. He didn't run. He walked slowly, his legs trembling, back into the room. Fuso was holding a bundle wrapped in white cloth. Kushina was lying back, her face pale and sweaty, but she was smiling, a smile so beautiful it made the sun seem dim. Look, Minato, she whispered. Minato took the bundle. Inside was a tiny boy with a tuft of spiky blonde hair and eyes that hadn't opened yet. But even in his sleep, the baby had a fierce look, in his spirit that was unmistakable. He looks like you, Kushina murmured. But I hope he has my temper. He'll need it to survive this world. What shall we name him? Minato asked, a tear finally escaping and landing on the baby's cheek. Kushina looked at the white flowers outside the window, then at her husband. My favorite story, about the hero who never gives up. Let's name him Naruto. Monkey D. Naruto. Minato looked at his son and felt a surge of conqueror's haki so subtle it didn't break anything, but it signaled to the very heavens that a new legend had been born. Naruto, Minato whispered, I promise you, the world will be different for you. You won't be a marine, and you won't be a pirate. You'll be the one who changes it all. The horizon. Far away, at the edge of the island's barrier, a lone marine rowboat sat in the water. Garp sat in the boat, his eyes fixed on the small cabin in the distance. He had found them. With his intuition, he could find his son anywhere. He stayed there for an hour, listening to the faint cry of a newborn baby carried by the stillness of the calm belt. Slowly, Garp picked up the oars and began to row away, back toward the marine ships waiting for his signal. Reporting in, Garp said into a Den Mushi. Garp, did you find the traitor? Sengoku's voice barked from the other side. Garp looked back at the island one last time, a small, proud smile hidden in his beard. No, the trail went cold. They must have reached the new world. I'm heading back for donuts. He hung up. Live well, Minato, Garp whispered to the wind. But if that brat doesn't grow up to be a strong man, I'm coming back to punch you both. Chapter 5. The Pact of the Legends. Timeline. 23 years ago, the Calm Belt, White Rock Island. 1 year had passed since the birth of Monkey D. Naruto. The island of White Rock was no longer just a hiding place, it had become a sanctuary. Minato had spent his days refining the Flash Barrier, a complex web of space-time seals that made the island virtually invisible to the Den Mushi signals and the surveillance of the world government. Naruto was already showing the signs of his lineage. At just 1 year old, he was crawling with a speed that made even Kakashi, who visited in secret, shake his head in disbelief. The boy didn't just crawl, he lunged. He had his mother's appetite and his father's unnerving habit of appearing in places he wasn't supposed to be. But the piece was a fragile glass dome, and the hammer was already falling. The secret meeting. A dark silhouette cut through the mist of the calm belt. It wasn't a marine ship, nor was it an ordinary pirate vessel. The ship was the Oro Jackson, the legendary galleon of the Pirate King. Minato stood on the beach, his hand resting on Setsuna. He had sensed this presence hours ago. It was a haki so vast and overwhelming it felt like the ocean itself was breathing. A man stepped off the small rowboat. He wore a long crimson coat, a captain's hat, and possessed a mustache that seemed to curve with the weight of his laughter. Gall D. Roger. So, Roger said, his voice booming as he stepped onto the white sand. The hero's son really did run away with the Whirlpool Princess. Garp's been grumbling about his lost donuts for months, Minato-kun. Roger, Minato said, bowing his head slightly, not out of submission, but out of respect for a man who had seen the end of the world. I didn't think you'd find this place. My seals are meant to be unbreakable. Roger laughed, a sound that made the Sea Kings miles away shiver. Seals are just lines on paper to a man who can hear the voice of all things. Besides, I didn't come here to fight. I'm a dying man, Minato. I'm looking for the future. The negotiation. Inside the cabin, Kushina was holding Naruto, her eyes wary. She knew Roger. Every pirate knew Roger. He was the summit they all climbed toward. He's got the look, Roger whispered, staring at the baby boy. Naruto, instead of crying, reached out and grabbed Roger's mustache with a tiny, firm grip. If I ever saw one. He's got the fire. Why are you here, Roger? Kushina asked, her adamantine chains humming faintly beneath the floorboards. The world government is closing in, Roger said, his expression turning uncharacteristically somber. They know about the boy. Not his name, not his location, yet. But they know the yellow flash and the habanero produced in air. They call him the Forbidden Prince. They fear his bloodline more than they fear my treasure. Minato tightened his grip on his tea. I'll kill anyone who touches him. You can't fight the whole world forever, Minato, Roger replied. Even you aren't that fast. I'm turning myself in soon. I'm going to start a new age. A golden age of piracy. I'm going to throw the world into such a chaos that the government won't have the resources to hunt a single child in the shadows. Minato's eyes widened. You're going to die on purpose. I'm going to spark a fire that burns down there. Absolute justice, Roger grinned. But I need a favor. When the world goes mad, your son will be a target. I've spoken to Rayleigh. I've spoken to Whitebeard. We want to ensure that the next generation has a chance. Roger leaned forward. Hide him. Not on this island. They'll find it eventually. Hide him in the one place the Marines fear to tread. Send him to the East Blue, to your father's home. Garp will hate it, but he will protect his grandson with his life. The pact. The deal was struck in the flickering candlelight of a pirate's hideout. Minato would remain a ghost. He would continue to act as a decoy, leading the Marines on a wild chase through the New World, while Kushina would take Naruto to the island of Dawn in the East Blue. One more thing, Minato said, standing up. If I'm to be a ghost, I need to make sure the world government thinks I've lost my power. I'm going to die in a clash with a powerful pirate. Someone the world fears. Roger looked at him, impressed. You'd give up your legend for his safety. A father's life is just a bridge for his son to cross, Minato said, his voice steady. Roger stood up and extended a hand. The Pirate King and the Rogue Vice Admiral shook hands, a pact that would change the course of history. The departure. A week later, the maelstrom was prepared. Kushina stood at the railing, Naruto strapped to her chest in a sturdy cloth wrap. Minato stood on the pier. This was the hardest teleport he would ever have to face. I'll find you, Minato promised, kissing Kushina deeply. Once I've led them away, once the death of the yellow flash is recorded in the papers. I'll come to the East Blue. You better. Kushina wiped a tear, her hair glowing with a soft, protective light. If you're late, I'll punch you across the red line. Databane. Minato watched the ship sail away. He stood there until the red sails were nothing more than a speck on the horizon. He then turned toward the open sea. He could feel it. A massive marine fleet led by Admiral Kizaru and Vice Admiral Bluegrass was approaching his sensory perimeter. They had followed Roger's trail. Minato drew Setsuna. His blue eyes turned cold. Time to show the world why they call me the Flash, he whispered. He threw 1,000 kunai into the air. They didn't fall. They hovered, caught in a spatial web of his own making. Horizon. Heaven's rain. As the first marine ship entered the bay, the sky erupted in gold. Minato wasn't fighting for justice anymore. He was fighting for a boy named Naruto, who was currently sleeping soundly in a ship headed for the weakest, yet safest, sea in the world. Marineford. 1 month later. The headline of the World News was printed in blood-red ink. The end of the Flash. Vice Admiral Minato falls in battle against the Rock's remnants. No body recovered from the whirlpool. In his office, Sengoku stared at the report. Garp sat opposite him, silently throwing a rubber ball against the wall. Thump, thump, thump. He's gone, Garp, Sengoku said, his voice heavy. Your son is dead. Garp didn't stop the ball. He didn't cry. He just looked out the window toward the East Blue, where a small, blonde-haired boy was currently being handed to a confused mountain bandit named Dayton. He's not dead, Garp whispered so quietly Sengoku couldn't hear. He's just waiting for the wind to change. Chapter 6. The Shadows of Dawn Island. Timeline. 17 years ago, East Blue, Dawn Island. The East Blue was known as the weakest sea, a place where the waves were gentle and the pirates were small-time dreamers. But on a jagged mountain called Mt. Kulubo, 3 boys were currently rewriting the definition of weak. 10-year-old Monkey D. Naruto was hanging upside down from a giant cedar tree by a single leg. His spiky blonde hair was matted with dirt, and he had a band-aid across the bridge of his nose. Hey, Ace, Luffy, watch this. Flash kick. Naruto swung his body with incredible torque, launching himself off the branch. He spun in the air like a golden top and landed a crushing kick onto the head of a massive forest tiger. The beast groaned and collapsed, stars dancing around its head. Cheap move, Naruto. Portgas D. Ace age 11 yelled, leaping from a nearby rock with a lead pipe. You used that weird vibration thing again. That's cheating. It's not cheating, it's instinct. Naruto grinned, his blue eyes sparkling with mischief. It feels like the air just tells me where to move. Datbeo. Monkey D. Luffy age 8 wearing his iconic straw hat, came tumbling out of the bushes. So cool. Naruto, teach me how to move like that. I want to be a rubber flash. You can't even walk in a straight line without tripping over your own feet, Luffy. Naruto laughed, ruffing his younger brother's hair. The three brothers sat by a campfire that night, roasting the tiger meat. They were a strange trio, the son of the pirate king, the son of the revolutionary dragon, and the son of the dead yellow flash. Naruto looked up at the moon. He didn't remember much of his early childhood, only the smell of sea salt, the sound of a woman's boisterous laughter, and the image of a man with golden hair who moved like a god. His aunt, Deiden, told him his parents were travelers who got lost at sea, but Naruto wasn't stupid. He saw the way Gramps Garp looked at him when he visited. It wasn't pity, it was expectation. The secret guardian. Deep in the shadows of the forest, far beyond the reach of the boy's sensory abilities, a man stood leaned against a tree. He wore a dark hooded cloak that concealed his features. His blonde hair was longer now, tied back in a short ponytail. His face bore the marks of years spent in the shadows, scars from battles fought in the dark corners of the New World. Monkey D. Minato. He wasn't dead. He was a ghost. For 7 years, he had lived in the caves of Mt. Kulubo, watching his son grow from a distance. He had made a pact with Garp. I will stay away so the world government doesn't look here, but I will protect them from the shadows. He's getting faster, a voice whispered from the darkness. Minato didn't flinch. He didn't need to. He recognized the scent of ozone and the weight of a powerful haki. Monkey D. Dragon, the leader of the Revolutionary Army, stepped out of the fog. Dragon, Minato acknowledged, his voice raspier than it used to be. I thought you were busy toppling kingdoms in the South Blue. I am, but even a revolutionary has to check on his family, Dragon said, looking at the campfire where Luffy was currently trying to steal Ace's meat. The world is getting restless, Minato. The balance is shifting. Your son, he has the D and the Uzumaki blood. He won't be able to hide in this forest forever. I know, Minato said, his gaze fixed on Naruto. He's already starting to manifest space-time intuition. He doesn't have a devil fruit, but his body is naturally tuned to the frequencies of the world. He's moving at speeds no 10-year-old should be capable of. The world government found a lead, Dragon said, his tone turning grave. CP9 agents were spotted in Logatown. They are looking for the blonde legacy. They think you're still alive, and they think you're hiding in your father's backyard. Minato's hand went to the hilt of Setsuna, hidden beneath his cloak. Then I'll lead them away again. Another sighting in the West Blue should do it. You can't keep being a decoy forever, Dragon warned. Eventually, you'll have to show him who you are. He deserves to know his father didn't just abandon him. Minato closed his eyes. I abandoned my name to save his life. If he hates me for it later, I'll accept that, as long as he lives to see the dawn. The first lesson. The next morning, Naruto went out to train alone by the great waterfall. He was frustrated. Every time he tried to push his speed, his muscles felt like they were tearing. Darn it. Naruto punched a tree. Why can't I just pop like I do in my dreams? Because you're trying to move your body through space, instead of moving space around your body. Naruto spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for a kunai he had carved from wood. A man in a hood was sitting on a rock, throwing a small pebble up and down. Who are you? A bounty hunter? Naruto shouted, his haki, still raw and unrefined, flaring. Just a traveler, the man said. His voice was warm, strangely familiar. You have good form, kid. But you're too tense. You move like a tiger, but you should move like the wind. A tiger has weight. The wind. The wind is everywhere at once. What do you know about it? Naruto huffed. The hooded man stood up. In the blink of an eye, faster than Naruto's eyes could even register, the man was standing behind him. He tapped Naruto on the shoulder. Rule 1, the man whispered. Never let your enemy get behind you. Naruto swung a punch, but his fist passed through empty air. The man was back on the rock. How did you do that? Naruto's eyes were wide, filled with a mix of fear and absolute awe. Was that a devil fruit? No, the man smiled, though his face remained hidden. That was just a little bit of focus. Tell you what, kid. I'll be around for a few days. If you can catch me, I'll teach you how to pop. Naruto grinned, that familiar, stubborn Uzumaki grin. You're on, cloak guy. I'm gonna catch you and make you tell me your name. Habaneeo. From the shadows, Minato watched his son's excitement. He couldn't hug him. He couldn't tell him he was proud of him. But for the next few weeks, the ghost of the Flash would give his son the tools he needed to survive the storm that was coming for the D clan. The letter. Before Minato left Dawn Island to lead the CP9 on another wild goose chase, he left a small wooden box buried beneath the roots of the cedar tree where Naruto slept. Inside was a single, tri-pronged kunai made of black sea stone, and a letter that simply read. To the boy who wants to be a hero. The world is a vast place, filled with shadows and light. Speed isn't just about being fast, it's about having the courage to arrive when you are needed most. Keep your brothers close. Protect the smile of the girl with the red hair you haven't met yet. We will meet at the summit. A friend. Naruto found the box years later, on the day he set sail to become a pirate. He tied the kunai to his belt and looked out at the ocean. I don't know who you are, Naruto whispered to the wind. But I'm gonna find you. And I'm gonna be faster than anyone in history. Chapter 7. The Whirlpool Awakens. Timeline. Present day, the New World, the Crimson Sea. Naruto was now 17, and he was a force of nature. While Luffy had set off with his Straw Hat crew and Ace had climbed the ranks of the Whitebeard pirates, Naruto had carved a different path. He didn't want a fleet, he wanted a crew that could move like a shadow. He called them the Maelstrom Pirates. His ship, the Golden Fox, was a small, high-speed sloop built from atom wood and lined with the same seastone technology his father once used. Naruto Taiko. Marine cruisers at 3 o'clock. Naruto looked up from his bowl of ramen. He had grown tall, with the lean, athletic build of his father and the wild, untamable energy of his mother. Around his waist hung the black seastone kunai, the only memento from his mysterious teacher in the forest. How many? Naruto asked, slurping the last of the noodles. 3 battle-class ships. It's a vice admiral's fleet. Naruto stood up, his blue eyes turning sharp. Only 3. They're getting lazy. Set the sails for the eye of the storm. We're heading home. The Hidden Realm, Uzushio. For years, the world believed the Uzumaki clan was extinct, a tragic footnote in history. They were wrong. Under the protection of the red-hot Habanero, the survivors had rebuilt their civilization on a moving island hidden within a permanent, giant whirlpool. As the Golden Fox bypassed the naval blockade using Naruto's spatial intuition, the massive gates of Uzushio opened. Standing on the docks was a woman who hadn't aged a day in the eyes of her people. Her red hair was still a vibrant, violent crimson, tied back in a warrior's braid. She wore a captain's coat over a kimono, and her presence made the very air hum with haki. Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto leapt from the mast of his ship, landing perfectly in front of her. Yo, Mom, I'm back. Did you miss me? Habaneeo. Wham! Kushina's fist connected with the top of Naruto's head, creating a comical lump. Late. You're 3 days late, she shrieked, her hair splitting into 9 distinct, fiery tails. I told you to be here for the Whirlpool Festival. Do you have any idea how much I worried? I almost sailed to Marineford to burn it down just to see if they'd captured you. I'm sorry. I got sidetracked by a rogue sea king. Naruto rubbed his head, grinning despite the pain. But look, I brought back the supplies you asked for. Kushina's anger evaporated instantly. She pulled her son into a crushing hug. You're getting too big, Naruto. You look more like that blonde idiot every day. You mean my dad? Naruto asked, his voice softening. Mom, you never told me the whole story. You said he died a hero. But every time I use my speed, I feel like someone is watching me. Someone who knows exactly how I move. Kushina looked toward the horizon, her eyes filled with a bittersweet longing. Your father was a man who chose to be a shadow so you could be the sun, Naruto. But the time for shadows is ending. The gathering storm. That night, in the great hall of Uzushio, the atmosphere was heavy. Kushina had called a meeting of the clan elders. The world government has activated the CP0, Kushina announced, her voice echoing. They've realized that the yellow flash wasn't just a man, but a bloodline. They've discovered that Uzushio still exists. They're calling it the Great Cleansing. They want to erase the D and the Uzumaki in one strike. Let them come. A young warrior shouted. We have the whirlpools on our side. It's not just ships this time, a voice said from the shadows of the balcony. Everyone turned. A man in a dark cloak stood there. He pulled back his hood, revealing the face that had been missing from the world for nearly 2 decades. Monkey D. Minato. The hall went silent. Kushina dropped her wine glass, the ceramic shattering on the floor. Minato, she whispered, her voice trembling for the first time in years. I'm sorry I'm late, Kushina, Minato said, jumping down and landing with a grace that defied gravity. He looked at his son, then at his wife. But the Gorosei have moved the ancient weapon, Uranus. They're going to use it to vaporize this entire sector of the sea. We have to move. Naruto stared at the man. The blonde hair, the blue eyes, the way he stood, exactly like the ghost from the forest. It was you, Naruto said, his voice rising. You were the one in the forest. You were alive this whole time and you didn't tell me. Minato walked toward his son. He didn't offer an excuse. He reached out and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I couldn't tell you, Naruto. If I had, your life would have been a constant hunt. I chose to be a ghost so you could have a childhood. Naruto looked ready to punch him, but he saw the scars on his father's hands, marks of 1,000 battles fought to keep the Marines away from Dawn Island. His anger died down, replaced by a fierce pride. Well, Naruto grinned, wiping his eyes. You're here now, and if they're bringing an ancient weapon, then we're just gonna have to show them that the Flash and the Habanero don't break easily. The ultimatum. Outside, the sky turned a dark, sickly green. The world government's fleet appeared, not 20 ships, but hundreds. At the center was a massive, floating fortress that blocked out the moon. Admiral Kizaru stood on the deck of the lead ship, his glasses reflecting the green light from above. Oh, so the yellow flash really was hiding in a whirlpool. How scary. It's a shame we have to erase such a beautiful island. From the shores of Uzushio, 3 figures stepped forward. Minato drew Setsuna. Kushina summoned her adamantine chains, which glowed with a blinding red haki. Naruto drew the black seastone kunai and centered his energy, his body beginning to vibrate with the frequency of the world. Mom, Dad, Naruto said, his blonde hair glowing. Let's show them why they should have stayed in Marineford. Minato smiled, a true D-clan grin. Ready when you are, Naruto. Kushina roared, her haki splitting the clouds. Databane. The family of legends launched themselves into the air, 3 streaks of light, yellow, red, and gold, heading straight for the heart of the world government's darkness. Chapter 8. The Final Flash, the Battle for the Dawn. Timeline. The present, the Crimson Sea. The sky didn't just darken, it groaned. The floating fortress above, the celestial aegis, crackled with an ancient, forbidden energy. This was Uranus, a weapon capable of rewriting geography. Below it, the ocean was a churning graveyard of white foam and jagged rocks. Naruto, stay close to your mother. Minato shouted, his voice cutting through the gale force winds. The CP0 are moving in. They aren't like the Marines, They don't care about collateral damage. I'm not a kid anymore, Dad. Naruto yelled back. He spun the black seastone kunai, his body blurring into a series of afterimages. I'll handle the front line. You and Mom take the big guys. Kushina laughed, a wild, melodic sound that signaled the start of a massacre. That's my boy. Don't let a single one of those masked bastards set foot on our soil. The clash of light. The first encounter was a blur of pure speed. Admiral Kizaru descended from the clouds, his body transforming into particles of light. Yasukani no Magatama. Kizaru droned, raining down thousands of light beams. Minato didn't flinch. He threw a handful of marked kunai into the air, creating a spatial net. Horizon. Guiding thunder. The light beams hit the invisible barriers and were instantly warped away, exploding harmlessly in the distance against the marine warships. In the next microsecond, Minato was in Kizaru's face. It's been a long time, Borsellino, Minato said, his blade Setsuna coated in jet black conqueror's haki. Oh, Minato-kun, you've gotten faster, Kizaru replied, forming a sword of light. The two collided, their movements so rapid that the shockwaves created vacuum pockets in the air, sucking up the ocean water. The red-hot fury. While Minato held the admiral, Kushina was a whirlwind of destruction. 5 CP0 agents, wearing their white masks and cloaks, surrounded her. They used Soru and Geppo to dance around her, firing Shigen finger pistols at her vitals. Annoying flies. Kushina screamed. Her adamantine chains erupted from her back, but they weren't just chains anymore. Infused with her Ruo advanced haki, they took the shape of 9 giant, ethereal fox tails. Whirlpool style. 9 tails devastation. The chains lashed out with the force of falling meteorites. One agent tried to block with Tekai, iron body, but the haki-infused chain shattered his ribs and sent him screaming into the whirlpool below. Kushina moved with a feral grace, her red hair glowing like a sun-going supernova. She was the anchor of Uzushio, a queen protecting her hive. Naruto's awakening. Naruto was facing the leader of the CP0 strike force, a man in a leopard print mask who moved with a terrifying, silent efficiency. You are the stain on the bloodline, the agent hissed, his hands dripping with haki. The world government will ensure you never reach the next dawn. Naruto felt something deep inside him snap. It wasn't just his father's speed or his mother's strength. It was the will to be free. You talk too much about the past, Naruto whispered. The air around him began to hum. For the first time, Naruto didn't just use a kunai to teleport. He felt the space between him and the agent contract. He reached out and literally pulled the horizon toward him. Space-time style. Rasen flash. He appeared instantly inside the agent's guard. In his palm was a Rasengan infused with the vibration of the whirlpools, a swirling vortex of white-hot energy. Boom. The agent was launched through 3 stone buildings before crashing into the cliffside. Naruto stood panting, his blue eyes flickering with a golden light. He looked up at the celestial aegis. The weapon was beginning to glow, it was ready to fire. The family reunion. Minato and Kushina landed beside Naruto on the highest peak of Uzushio. Kizaru had retreated to the fortress, realizing that a direct confrontation on the ground was a stalemate. They're going to fire, Minato said, looking at the gathering green light above. That weapon can erase an island from the maps. My guiding thunder can't warp something that big. Then we combine it, Kushina said, grabbing Minato's hand. Her red haki began to flow into him. My sealing power can stabilize the space. Minato, use me as your battery. Naruto stepped forward, placing his hand on his father's other shoulder. And use my vibration. I can feel the frequency of that weapon. If we match it, we can nullify the impact. The 3 of them stood together, the yellow flash, the red-hot habanero, and the golden fox. The celestial aegis fired. A pillar of green light, miles wide, descended from the heavens. It was the judgment of the gods. Now, Minato roared. The family erupted in a pillar of gold and red energy. They didn't run. They didn't hide. They flew directly into the beam of destruction. Ultimate Hiraishin, Maelstrom of Justice. A massive, glowing seal appeared in the sky, shaped like the Uzumaki spiral but filled with the lightning of the Monkey D clan. The green light hit the seal and, for a moment, time stood still. Then, with a sound like the world cracking in half, the beam was sucked into the seal and spat back out, aimed directly at the floating fortress. Kaboom! The celestial aegis disintegrated in a rain of white-hot metal and ancient stone. The gods were falling from the sky. The dawn. As the sun began to rise over the now calm Crimson Sea, the marine fleet retreated in terror. The Forbidden Family had not just survived, they had broken the world government's ultimate threat. Minato, Kushina, and Naruto sat on the beach of Uzushio, watching the sunrise. They were covered in soot, their clothes were rags, and they were exhausted to their bones. So, Naruto said, leaning back on his elbows. What now? We're the most wanted people in history. Kushina leaned her head on Minato's shoulder, a tired but happy smile on her face. Now, we eat ramen. A lot of ramen. Databane. Minato looked at his son, then at the horizon. The world is changing, Naruto. Roger started the fire, but you just proved that the D can't be extinguished. The next time we sail, we aren't hiding. Naruto stood up, looking toward the Grand Line. He knew his brothers, Luffy and Ace, were out there somewhere, making their own waves. Yeah, Naruto grinned, the sun reflecting in his eyes. Next time, the whole world is going to see us coming. The yellow Flash and the red-hot Habanero stood beside their son, three legends against the world, ready for the final age to begin.